Alright, in this video, I'm going to take a look at using pseudo classes and pseudo elements. And we can find some information about that on W3 schools and what some of those are. We can find lists of them so that we can do different things that we need to do. But first, we need to look at what are these pseudo selectors. So a pseudo class is a selector that selects an element that is in a specific state. So if they are the first element of their type, or they are currently being hovered by the mouse pointer, and they act as if you had applied a class of some sort to part of your document, and that can help you cut down on having excessive classes, because you can select something like the first of type or different pieces of that on hover, visited, unvisited links, and do some different things with those. Now, a pseudo element behaves in a similar way, but they act as if you had added an entirely new HTML element into the markup instead of applying a class to existing elements. And they start with a double colon, where the pseudo classes start with a single colon and then whatever that pseudo class name is. So I want to look at a few of those, and you can combine them to do some different selecting and make some different things happen. We looked at that a little bit when we were looking at styling only the first header element inside of the body tag and making sure that we were only selecting that very first one when we used that first of type. So here we're going to look at a few more. I'm going to go into my HTML and add some links. I'm going to put these links underneath this header here. Alright, so now here I have a nav element added with inside of that I have the UL element for my unordered list. That's a pretty standard way of creating these menus and then styling them a certain way. And then each of these list items has a link in it. I don't have these links set to go anywhere. So when I save this and I refresh my page, I can see we have these links. Well, I'm going to zoom in here so that we can see that a little bit better. And in my styles.css, I'm going to go ahead and select this UL element and then change the list style type to none. And just for simplicity, I'm going to I know that I have 4 of these, so I'm going to change the width to 25% and float those left. And we'll talk about floats in another video. And I just realized I was styling the wrong element. So here, what I wanted to do was select those LI elements, but I only want to select those for the nav or any list items that are in the nav. So nav, UL, LI, and up here I only want to take away the list style type of the UL that is in the nav element. So now I'm going to move these styles here down into the rules for this selector, and when I save this, we should now see, now I have this these links going left to right instead of top to bottom. And like I said, we'll look at doing floats and some of these things later. In the assignment for this week, we do have a link showing you kind of how to build out one of those using that unordered list element, and that'll kind of help you get an idea of what's going on. And I'm also going to style this nav element. Alright, so here, these are down inside of this element. Let's take a look. That should be, because we floated it, it kind of takes it out of the flow. So I'm going to come in here, and in this section, I'm going to give it a top margin of 15 pixels. And just to be safe, this nav element, I'm going to give it a bottom margin of 15 pixels. So now when I save this, and that's not going to create 30 pixels worth of margin. It'll take whichever one is the highest and make sure that it has that. So when I save this, I refresh our page, we got nothing. So what I can do now is inspect this element, and I can see my nav. This says that I have 15 pixels, but because I floated it, it acts a little bit different. So here, when I hover over my nav element, I can see where it is, and we can look at changing position or other ways to do to work with that. But for now, I'm going to just leave it as is, because even if I change this to, say, 35 on these, then that doesn't really make much of a difference. Because those are floated, that takes them out of the normal flow. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this margin off of both of these. Save this again. We'll refresh this. I mean, it made a little bit of a change, but we will look at some stuff that will help correct those issues later. So now for looking at those pseudo classes and pseudo elements, I want to take a look at styling our links. So a :link is going to set the styles for an unvisited link. So in this case, most of the time you're going to want to keep that blue as long as it's visible on whatever background you have. And this is visible. So I'm going to go ahead and give these a background color of white, just to help them stand out a little bit more while we're working with these. You also have the :visited, which is going to style your visited links. So if somebody has visited the link already in their browser, then maybe I want to set the color to the bright pink color of FF00FF. And when I refresh my page, these all look the same still. If I click on one of these, because it's just going to this page still, we can see it's now a visited link. And we can see that it changed colors because it is something that we visited. So now in my HTML, I'm going to change these to some actual URLs, just so we can see some of these different ones. I'm going to do a quick Google search for, I don't know, anything random, just so that I can copy these URLs to some stuff that I probably haven't gone to in the past. And this is just a URL directly from a Google search. All of these are going to be, so there's no need to worry about what these are. I'm just doing it to, or for the sake of doing this. Now, I have definitely been to otc.edu before, and I have been to W3 Schools a number of times. So this way we'll have a few visited links and a few unvisited links. So here, let me save this. When I refresh my page, now I can see I visited this link. This is OTC. This one's W3 Schools. A random word generator, a random number generator that I just got off of Google. So now we can go back to styling these, because now we can see the visited and unvisited. And this is just the default. So all of these links are going to get this white background, even the unvisited ones. I could change the background color for a visited link if I wanted to. I could change that to this bright pink color, and then use this bright green for the text color, and we can do something like that. We can also set on these links a :hover, and if you're going to be setting the hover value for a link, you should also set the focus value. So a: focus. And those work differently. Hover is when you are hovering your mouse over the link, where focus is if you're using the tab key to tab through the page, what that link does when you do that. So on hover and on focus, I want to set the color to, we'll go with purple, and the background color to a little black. Yeah, we'll go black and white. Or better get black and orange. So now when I save this, I refresh my page, we don't see any changes initially, but if I come up here and I hover over this, we can see that that's changing when I hover over that element. And now you can see my mouse pointer up here in the blue. I'm going to start tabbing through the page, and as I tab through, we can see those things changing. And the one that I am on right now has focus, so that is the use of that pseudo class focus that we have here, versus hover, when we hover over the element. And that is used for accessibility, so that somebody that's tabbing through the page can see what link they're on. Occasionally you'll see those where they kind of move just slightly, maybe by a couple of pixels, and we'll look at some of that later on as well. Now, a pseudo element that we were looking at, so here we have pseudo elements, and like first line or first letter, something like that, we can style a certain way. So here we have some different values, I'm going to add a little bit more text into this last one to get candy. Some other people play tricks. So now when I save this, yeah, this last sentence here has a couple of lines. So when I select this, this paragraph inside of this section, and I only want to select that one paragraph, so I know I can select P colon last of type, the same way that we selected the header first of type inside of the body. Now we're getting into actually going over those examples. But I also, well, let's take a look here. Let's change the color to brown. Save that. When I refresh the page, yeah, that's not very good for this. So let's change the background color instead. Save that, refresh this. And it does come out kind of this reddish color being on top of that orange. And it's not that pretty, but it's selecting that entire paragraph. So now if I wanted to just select that first line, I need to use a pseudo element. So doing that, the two colons, and then first dash line. And now when I save this and refresh my page, it's only putting that on the first line here. And that is going to change with your browser window, your viewport. So now that all of it is on one line, the entire thing has that background color. Where if I take this in, we can see only the part that is in the first line of that paragraph is going to get that highlighting. So again, you'll have to be careful how you go about doing that, if it makes a difference where exactly that highlighting happens. If I needed to just highlight a piece of that and didn't want to highlight the entire first line, then I could do something like using the mark tag to highlight it. So if I wanted to highlight Halloween here in my HTML, I can use mark on either side of that, save that, and then we can have just that piece highlighted. You can do that with an entire phrase. You could wrap that in a span and style it a different way if you wanted to. But that is a little bit of how to use those pseudo classes and pseudo elements.